Welcome into another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm your host, Aaron.
I'm the other host, James Rajecsic, and today we're joined by two people who've already been on the podcast before. We've got Bean.
Yo.
And AstroCosmos.
Hello.
And today we're going to be discussing good uses for bad cards.
So we made a list of the 5 worst cards of each type. The 5 worst champs, 5 worst events, and the 5 worst common units. So we're going to go through all of those and just talk about maybe a bit why they're bad cards and then how to best use them to get the most out of those cards. And discarding for Magic is not going to be the use. That won't be the use.
It's not an acceptable use in this case. Play the card. Well, assume that most of the time you probably will discard these cards for Magic, but when wouldn't you?
And I feel uniquely qualified to talk about this as a person who sees these bad cards and tries to make them work just because I want them to work and they're fun. A Glory Caller Defender from day one.
We're
feel
basically
very
here to talk about Bean's drafts.
Yeah. All of the things that people didn't support me when the drafts for best commons and best all that stuff. Yeah, I'm coming back with a vengeance right now.
So why don't we start with the common units. First one we had on there was the Citadel Archer.
You know them. You love them. Everybody votes for them.
Yeah. They're the OG bad unit.
Come on, 1 strength is great for range.
Yeah.
They are one of the only ranged units in the Vanguards, so there are uses for them, especially early on, because you can get some magic and momentum going. And they are, with the recent change to Jacob, slightly better, although I haven't actually tested that out, but in theory.
I'm playing Vanguard.
As we are recording this, it is very recent since they were changed, but I think that does help, a lot. If Jacob gets played, and Jacob's cheap, so he should get played a lot.
I think it could do a lot, to be frank. Feel the Citadel Archer, the Discord general community has discussed quite a bit about them, and I think they've kind of hit the nail on the head with them. They're really good early on. Obviously, they fall off later when you have no cards you can pitch for them. But as a ranged unit, and during that first stages of the game, when you want to take control of the mid board and kind of fight for space, they've got their uses if you get them early, and they accelerate your magic. Because discarding at the end of your turn still generates the same amount, but this way you're getting 1 attack die or 1 strength die with each card you'd pitch anyway.
And I think there is some synergy designed in the deck. If you do something like attack with a Paladin first to draw some cards, attack with Sarah to get the 1 Citadel unit in your hand that you didn't have yet, and then shoot with a Citadel Archer for 4 or 5, it feels pretty good when you pull that off. Also, when you get that magic in the middle of your turn, as you were saying, AstroCosmos, if you have Renewed Hope out, you can shoot something for a bunch of magic and then summon a big champion out or some other commons with the magic you just got during your attack phase, and that could be useful.
Yeah, it's a okay unit who's worse in the context of the deck just because it is the only ranged option. And so you do have to kind of rely on it sometimes when the stats are off from what it would be coming out nowadays, I think. But it's because it's the only range option, its faults are more magnified, I feel like.
Yeah, and they've tested a couple different changes to it in tournaments. I don't think anything's going to happen. I mean, we don't know ever for certain, but they just made a couple other changes to the deck for different errata, so I don't think any changes coming to the Citadel Archer. So we should learn to use it as best we can as it is right now. I think later game, a lot of the use is either getting an unexpected range attack in, even just saving 1 if you need an extra Citadel unit so you can get Citadel's Might to trigger. That can be a use, even though it's not directly using the card. But having it on the battlefield if you need a Citadel unit is important.
Definitely, and just squirrel it away, basically.
Yeah, I definitely say its biggest strength is the fact that it is range. So even off the Renewed Hope turns where you can double up attack, so you can attack with Sarah, bring in an archer, and shoot with that if your target is too far away. I think Vanguard players have really learned to play around the melee range of their other 2 Citadel units and things like that. But there are just going to be matchups or board states or moments where you need that extra range. And The Citadel Archer isn't terrible for doing that. Sure, they would like a better option, but I think it's got a worse rap than it deserves. Probably just because we need to make a list and put somebody on bottom. Somebody has to go there, so.
Yeah, and this list isn't necessarily bottom to top, or so to speak. We didn't actually rank them, so Citadel Archer is the one we're starting with, but there could be one on this list that is worse. Do we want to go to the other unit in the same deck?
Probably.
All right, the Temple Priest is next on the docket. It's a 0 cost, which is always nice to have in a deck, but it's not a Citadel unit, so you don't get that aspect from it. And its ability to heal another unit, you have to discard a card to do so, and you don't discard it for magic. It doesn't gain you magic. So it's a bit of a heavy cost to heal, sometimes up to 3, 4 if you're lucky, health on a unit.
Yeah, I mean, it can't miss, which is kind of cool when it heals. It turns all the specials into hits as well, and all those hits heal the unit. Part of the problem with the healing is that it takes up one of your attacks, and then the other part is that you have to have something that's worth healing and a chance to heal it. You know, it's like, 'cause sometimes you just don't, you don't have something that's alive or weakened the right amount. If something's only taken 1 or 2 damage, it might not feel worth it to try to heal it. It's just a problem with healing in general in this game, I think, potentially.
Yeah.
That being said, I have gotten a decent amount of use from Temple Priests, especially, when you have Holy Judgment up and you only have 2 really good attacks. Then a perfect one is to heal back essentially a knight all the way to full, even if it's at 1. Or you can do it on Colleen, which is really nice to, like, say they attack Colleen a bunch and you can heal her back up, or, one of your other champs if you're doing that too.
One of the things that I do find it useful is in a situation where you don't want to attack your enemy, and you're like, well, when's that? Well, one could be like Mind Warden from the Deepwood Grove, because if they've got Wither up or something, and it's like, I don't want to attack and just do 1 damage to them and give them a boost. Or if there's like Phoenix Elves Events, Flare, or Divine Retribution up, and you're like, I don't want to attack into that and take damage, so I might as well just find ways around that and heal my own units.
All right, quick question, because I'm sure you're all Vanguard mains here. Does that cancel out the inactivity damage? So if you just attack a heal priest, will you not be hurt then?
I don't think so. I think you still have to attack one other enemy card, but
Yeah, you'll still take.
But it could be useful, just like you make 1 attack and heal your guys, or
Yeah.
And in general, I think the healing is more of like a tempo play than an econ play, so it's when your position is important, then it's useful to heal that Citadel Knight that's way at the front or whatever, just so you don't have to summon another one.
It's very much a tempo play, I feel like, because at the right moments, that heal can be pretty devastating. Same with like Mass Heal, another maligned card that just got changed. So like those healing in the Vanguard decks at the right points can really prevent your opponent from capitalizing on taking down some like pretty big units. And you pair that with like Colleen and her ability, and it can have its place. Another way I've seen it used is if you're playing more of a later game or more of a ranged game, and you have Jacob out, and Jacob can only be hit from one side, like they don't have a whole lot of avenue to take him out in one hit, is just heal him back up several times, which I've seen that go over really well. I saw Snaug do that several times, even before Jacob was changed. Win a couple games that way when you're trying to take out something that is just shambling towards you, like carriers or something of that nature.
2 things. Like, one is just the fact that everything is so expensive in the Vanguard deck. It is nice to have a 0 cost unit, even if it is just a 2/2 that has no ability, basically. Like, that's nice, and it can get 3 attack from Holy Judgment. That's fine. And then just when I first started playing online for the first time, and I'd been playing a bunch in person with my friend, I thought that you could heal Sarah with it. And so you could probably go back and
that would be worth it.
So I did attack Sarah and online, and I just took damage, and then I was immediately, you could probably find some comment of me in the Discord being like, why did I take damage, blah, 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 and I'm Eagerbone, or somebody was like, well, you fell for it, or something like that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was a rough learning experience.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that. I'm going to defend Temple Priest for not being the worst card in the game. And it's, as you said, Beans, like that 0 cost, especially in a deck that's so expensive as Vanguard's, is like an ability unto itself. Generally, it's basically playing. Temple Priests are at least for us value players, it doesn't have an ability. But being able to come out at 0 when you're trying to build up to like 6 magic to get Colleen out is invaluable, because that means that's another body that can come out and block a flank for a unit. It's another attack that you wouldn't have been able to if you're just spending outright for 6 on Colleen, and that's all you build up to. So I think the fact that it is 0 in this deck particular, but most 0 cost cards, I'd say in general, it'd have to be really bad to be like the worst card in the game. And then it's got like that extra little bit of synergy. The 3 attack on Holy Judgment turns a 0 cost unit for 3 strength melee is a steal. You're going to be able to trade pretty well with a lot of decks on that turn. And if you can manage to get Holy Judgment to last a second attack round, then that Temple Priest is going to be making big bank. On its own, the heal ability is, like, as Jexic mentioned, not worth triggering most of the time unless you've got like a very narrow avenue you can heal up a champion. The way it works with the rest of the deck, I play them. I don't play Vanguard, but when I do play Vanguard, I will definitely play like 1 or 2 just for getting control of the board and doing some trades within reason. I mean, obviously not going to throw them out against like Fungal Dwarves.
Yeah.
And I think something you have to be wary about is like they are a good econ for that 0 cost, because you can just get another unit out, get another attack if you don't have something else, because everything else costs so much, like you were saying. But if you are playing Holy Judgment with them, you really have to be careful about where they're at, so you're not like losing boosts on your Holy Judgment just because you have a priest or 2 out, and they can easily be taken down. But like Guardian Spirits helps with that, and if you can get that out, or having some knights to protect him or something, and
Or even getting the priest out on the second turn of the Holy Judgment. Doesn't have to be on the first one.
true. This is a weird side note, but it blew me away a little bit one time when Shampoo played a Holy Judgment and didn't have like any units on the board.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then next turn, he came out with strong units to attack. It was just like an automatic -1 turn, but interesting side play.
Almost like somebody who faded away without a targeted unit and just to get the boot.
That never happens. I mean, I wouldn't have done that in a league game against you, Bean. That would be disrespectful.
All
We
right.
can move on to the next one.
Should we go to the next 0 coster?
Yeah, 0 cost.
So we got the Iridescent Oracle from the Shimmersea Fae.
This one is an interesting one because right off the bat you get a draw, which is always nice. I don't know if anybody's really complaining about having a draw. And it allows you to discard a card for magic from your hand, which can make you a little more unpredictable.
Definitely.
You could only have like 1 magic and get something out for 2 costs or something like that.
I think the reason people don't like it is, I mean, obviously its stats aren't that great, but it's a 0 coster. But the fact that that ability is good when you play it, it is also unrewindable. And so if you play it in the wrong spot, you're kind of screwed. And so you really have to kind of be smart about where you summon these guys, because you do want to draw that card, but if you say, oh, it'd be better if I didn't summon it right at the front and I wanted to summon something else off of that, then you can't, like, at that point. You just got to be smart about where you're summoning them and if you're going to be actually using them, or if you're just kind of having them as a body on the field kind of a thing to enable your other stuff. But that unpredictability is the main thing. Well, you think I can't do anything, but now I have an extra magic that I can do this, this, and this, or I have this new card that allows me to, jump up here or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think they have a little bit of that same aspect that the Citadel Archer has, in that they are kind of without an ability late game. Because if you get Oracles late game and you don't have any cards left to draw, or you're running low on cards and don't want to draw cards, like if you're saving your sisters at the bottom of your deck or need just enough for a sister to go back down, then their ability can be non-existent, and so that can be kind of a detriment to them. The fact that they're mostly good into the beginning to middle of the game, and in the end game they're just like a blanket 2/2, like the worst stat line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, like, I did just say I would put Zero Coster at the bottom of the list. Iridescent Oracle is probably one I could be convinced on, though I'm sure Jexic, when he gets his turn, will explain why I wouldn't. Pier, as Steve mentioned, can break your turn, so its ability is kind of rough there. The problem with its two ranged ability... Now, I'll give a argument for Oracle, because I talked to Beast Slumbers, and I've read his kind of dissertation on his unique way of approaching the Fae, and oracles are essentially key to it. Having that ability to make a ranged attack in this deck when you are playing the Beast Slumbers way, which is sort of like holding back, biding your time, getting a good like handle of your deck in your hand and your draw, and then unleashing an attack when you've kind of lured your enemy into a disadvantaged position. You want to be doing it with oracles. You don't want to be doing it with your scouts, because your scouts are insanely strong, probably the best common in the deck. I don't think that's controversial. So having this like disposable body that doesn't cost you really anything, and it as you mentioned, Aaron, that it generates C1 magic because you can discard to do that poking, and luring out more expensive units to then counterattack with is pretty strong. So I think that is a really unique way to really utilize this card. You wouldn't normally use it if you were doing the standard Fey rush forward and crush, though. I think the other thing in Oracle's strength, and I'll toss this one over to Jexic, whether you want it or not, is definitely in the deck building. That card draw on summon, I feel, is much better in a completely different sphere or arena.
Yeah, we saw it in Escurial's second place deck in the last tournament that used Blood Summon and all kinds of crazy stuff. But so any Shadow Elves or Eternal Council type decks that want to draw cards it's a unique ability there. But I do think for most of this cast, we'll probably be talking about the uses in base decks.
It is interesting just thinking about the comparison between this and then, is it the only other zero cost ranged 2/2 that is the Nick Cultist, right? And I've got y'all who were just the filth podcast people, but none of us think the Nick Cultist is bad, and it essentially is very similar, but obviously you can summon off of that and do things. But the same with the Oracle in a way, right? Just
There's also the Devout Cultist.
Oh, Devout Cultist, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Devout Cultists keep coming back. I think it's just that
That's
Shimmer
true.
Sea Fae want tougher bodies than they have, and it's just yet another 2-life thing that just kind of dies. I don't think we're supposed to be talking about how bad they are. We were trying to find the uses, and I think we did. We said poke with them in range, draw people in, so that people come in for that juicy magic, and then you get them.
They're good at like stalling for that deck, like Astro was talking about, of just biding your time with poking for a turn, and when they come in, you can launch your attack. But speaking of another unit that's fairly good at stalling, the Ember Mage is another 2/2 unit, but it costs 1 and slightly better ability.
I mean, I'm an Ember Mage defender, big time. As a PE player, a Phoenix Elves player, and all sorts of stuff, I really like them. And there are definitely some matchups where they're going to be much worse than in others, but you just have to kind of know that. And then there's some that they're really strong in too. And so, like, I'm not going to play them a lot in Storm Goblins, but I might play them a lot against Tundra Orcs, or against Crimson Order or something, right? Like
Wayfarers.
Yeah, Wayfarers for sure. They can be really strong. That ability can be really strong. And then also, even against some factions that are bad, like when I play the Forged, I'm still probably going to play one, even if they can die from Forged in Flame. You just have to be smart about where you play them. And also, is it worth it to play it and then summon a beast off of it, which is a really nice ability that you have on top of that, too. So I think they can be really good. And they are a lot more survivable, and they're really reliable blockers for Maldaria and all sorts of stuff too.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why they end up on this list and a fair amount of people's like worst commons list is because of the matchups that they are like bad in. The matchups they're good in, like they can be really useful. Like you play them against like Tundra Orcs, and you got like a Smasher trying to hit one, and what's that even doing? Four dice, 1 damage. But you play it against like Sand Goblins or like other decks that can do direct damage, and it negates the card almost entirely. There are like fringe uses where they could still be useful. Like you can use them even against like Storm Goblins by getting them way out of where they have the ability to electrocute, so they would have to like overcommit to shock that Ember Mage. But yeah, for the most part, against direct damage, they are just not near as useful. And there's a fair amount of decks that can do direct damage.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like Storm Goblins, Sand Goblins, there's the Forge, there's the Eternal Council, there's Fallen Kingdom, and there's a lot of decks that can do some direct damage. And
yeah, to me, they're a higher tier than some of these other ones we talked about. And it's because of just kind of the context that they're in and the fact that they have kind of a sneaky second ability, which is you can summon the beast off of them. And that is a big thing. And that's sometimes you need that more than you need and you don't have an archer in your hand or that kind of a thing. So I still will summon one or two in those tough matchups. I won't try for it a lot, but if you just immediately are saying, I'm discarding every single one of these, that limits a lot of your options in your plays. And so I think that they can find some work for you in even those tough matchups. That being said, I would lean towards discarding them in that. And Phoenix Elves is really nice because they can shift how they play away from them in those different matchups compared to like Vanguards can't necessarily shift in from one mode of playing to another, right? Or Shimmer Sea Fae can a little bit, but you have to be really good like Beast Slumbers, right? So like Phoenix Elves, in my mind, you can shift away from Ember Mages and play your champs or play different commons, all sorts of stuff. But they still do have uses in those games that are tough, just smaller uses.
yeah, and they are one of a couple ranges that you have in that deck. If you're not getting into archers, they also can be like a useful another range unit to get a couple range die. And in most scenarios, they'll last another turn. But
yeah,
it's all that direct damage that can really. And sometimes like you're not even worried about them not lasting another turn. Like if they overcommit to get that direct damage, whether it's using more cards than they need to be, and the Ember Mage wasn't that important. If they like Ice Ram and they're hitting your Ember Mage and not much else, or if they're like using a turret and overcommitting on that, or there's a lot of aspects where you don't always mind that if they overcommit on your Ember Mage.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta ask, because you brought it up. The Ember Mages on this list because of me. Full disclosure. I think they're rubbish. I'm not going to defend them. However, Pete, you said that they got a second ability because they work well with Ember Beast. So are you summoning them and positioning them specifically to last a turn, so the next turn you can summon the Ember Beast? Or are you summoning them and then immediately summoning the Beast on them?
Both. Those are both part of it. And you can do, as long as you position them well the first turn, like they should survive if you play them the right way, right? If you make it so they can only be attacked once, then they will survive, unless it's a faction that does direct damage. So in that way, you can summon a beast off of a way and make it that fire unpredictability of, can something come out of this? Can that? Or if it's in front of Maldaria, you can immediately summon something and it has more reach because of that. Like, yeah, I think they are a big part of that. And if you build up your magic too, you can do that with 2 Ember Beasts, right? Like, and make it even longer chain that gives you way more reach, kind of a thing too.
I'm not a Phoenix Elf pro or player or anything by any stretch of imagination. I tried to do that and I tanked my Elo one season. So you'd hold on to the beast for the next turn then?
Yeah, or maybe you just draw into it or something, but it's a thing where like you can find a space for it a lot of the time. As long as your opponent isn't perfectly positioned to avoid that all the time, then you can usually find something for it. And it doesn't have to be the beast gets the direct damage. It can be the beast now can reach something that it couldn't before, you know?
So do you find you use them more on the offensive or defensive?
Definitely defensive.
More like if you're being encroached on, then you find greater use than if you're trying to like press into the opponent's side.
Yeah. Right now I'm in a game where they're going really hard on my gate, and I feel like pretty fine because I have a bunch of Ember Mages out there, and so I can summon beasts off of them until I get a new gate, you know?
Jumping back a little further, here we go on a classic Astro tangent. You were mentioning that the Phoenix Elf versus Forge matchup, you actually do you feel it's Phoenix Elf favored? And do you feel like
No.
Ember Mage plays into that?
I think it's 50-50, which I think is, most people I think would disagree on that, but I've found a lot of good success in it, and just takes a lot of really good positioning and understanding of the forged like limitations and reach, so that if you have an Ember Mage, you can know like not gonna get Fortune Flames next turn, because that's really the worst part of it. Or this is one that is not going to get Blast Forge damage on it that does something. But yeah, I think that's a part of it, and just the other stuff that's in Phoenix Elves is really good, right? Fire Drake is really, really good against the Forge, and other things that are really good against the Forge. I think Royal Guardians are really good in that too, just being able to force those structures. I understand why people think it's a tough matchup, because one wrong move and you can just get absolutely taken down with all that damage. So you just have to really be understanding of that matchup and the range and limitations that you have, and use your like defensive hidey hole teleportation abilities to the best you can.
I bring it up just because I'm going to throw out a spicy take. I think it's Phoenix Elf favored, and it could just be the replays I've watched. But I've watched a number of replays where it is Phoenix Elf versus the Inventor, and I think, okay, well, the Inventor's going to take this. If I were to pick a side on this, I'd definitely pick the Inventor. And more often than not, I'd probably say like greater than 60% of the time, Meldaria squeezes it out. And she is obviously playing a defensive game. I don't think the Inventor has ever tried like holding back and just let Maldaria do her thing. I think that's just a recipe for failure. Yeah, I'm wondering if like there's just something in the deck, and maybe part of it is the upper mage, and maybe it's just the deck I don't understand altogether. But time after time, replay after replay, she just squeezes out those wins, and it could be part of that playing around the reach and being able to just dance from side to side, force those moves, get the Royal Guardians to push things away, and just grinds the Inventor down.
I mean, James can talk about this with fairs. Like, Phoenix Elves are really good against aggressive decks because they're just so slippery and so defensive and that kind of a thing. So I think, yeah, if something's coming at you, they have a lot of ways to deal with that and just kind of shift the field or really punish you if you expose yourself, that kind of a stuff. So
Wayfarer is probably disadvantaged in the matchup, and then part of it is actually the Ember Mage, because that Wayfarers have no extra damage from outside of attacks, and they can only get 3 attacks, so wasting 2 attacks on an Ember Mage feels awful. Feels like a huge waste of time, but if they've got 4 Ember Mages out, you're going to have to kill them eventually, and yeah.
That's another aspect which we didn't touch on. With the Ember Mage also, sometimes you want to be a little wary in decks that have a lot of extra attacks, like if you're playing against Cave Goblins or Spectral Conclave, like that's another aspect you need to think about besides just direct damage. Is if they have 20 attacks in a turn and they don't care if they spend 2 on an Ember Mage, they might spend 2 on an Ember Mage, so it might not be there the next turn. Silly side note also is if you deck build with Maldaria, you can put both the new dragons in there, and you can have Fire Drake and 2 other dragons and just run dragons.
Dragon deck.
maybe I should do
But
that.
Fire Drake you can't mount.
Fire Drake can ride a dragon, though.
Yeah, this is true, which seems silly.
All right, Jackson, I want to see this deck.
Rain some fire also too.
Maldaria and Fire Drake side by side riding dragons, you know? What could
Yes.
be better?
I made one on stream the other day. I don't think it had Fire Drake, though. Let me see what my deck build was.
Be pretty expensive.
Well, you could put the Fire Drake on a Wormling.
I made one called All In that had Brimstorm, Cinderwing, and Sprocket, because my idea is if you fly Maldaria in, you could summon Sprocket off of her and then turbo it forward. And then it had Coolant, an Axe, 2 Hellforge weapons, and 2 Rainfires. So the idea, and they had Blast Forge and Embercog, so you could summon them up front, and also Sacral Priest to off of Maldaria, and Ashen Raiders. So the idea was pretty much everything can be summoned on your opponent's side of the board, and you get there by flying there. In the one game I played with it, I was being heavily attacked by Tundra Orcs, and I ended up winning, actually, but it was mostly because I kept being able to summon structures and Sacral Priests on my side of the board to play defensively. Catalyst for that deck idea was using Rainfire with Spirit of the Phoenix. Just seemed like fun.
That seems like a lot of fun.
Gross.
But let's go on to the final common. We got the Blood Berserker as our final common. There was a couple that we batted around for this final place, and the Blood Berserker, I think, is the one we landed on. It's a fine card. It's got a lot of health. Could hurt yourself if you're not careful with the Wild Swing there. But it doesn't have a whole lot of attack. It does gain a little bit of benefit from the other cards in the deck, adding Axe or Chains on to give you a little more versatility, a little more damage, get a little more out of that card before that 5 health is used up.
Yeah, I think that's what Magnifico said when he was on our episode, was that they're really good with weapons. like the Hellforged Axe or the chains or both even. And the fact that they have 5 health means and only 2 attack means that often your opponent will ignore them. They're like, oh, I really got to kill these Ember Demons or the Oathsworn or the Ember Guards. So they'll often be left alone, and then that'll give you a chance to throw an axe on them and then hit stuff with it. You just have to be careful not to try to not to swing with an axe next to something of your own, because you don't want to accidentally wild swing your own dudes for 2 or 3 damage. I will point out that special damage from the wild swing doesn't count as an attack technically. So if you're fighting something like an Ember Mage, and you can actually kill it with 2 specials.
Why
incidentally.
Why would you do that?
Just another deck that has some direct damage. Why do that when you can just Volcanic Blast and Ember Mage and the
I will say, you talk about the items and the weapons you could put on it. Like, if you have the Hellforge, that just makes all of your Blood Berserkers a lot better and a lot more likely to summon them, because them with an axe is a really good card, and them without an axe is fine, and that's why we have it on the low commons list. And the fact that its just ability is not predictable, and I think that's why a lot of people don't like them, because we like predicting things. We like having complete control over things, and that's why some people that may or may not be on this don't like Obsidian Dwarves at all, because they're so unpredictable,
Yeah, I don't think you're getting a pot on this without having some Obsidian unit dwarf unit on here with me coming. So yeah, I fully agree. I don't think Blood Berserker gets played ever if you don't have Hellforge Axe in the deck. Jexic, do you see this in deck building anywhere with
Blood Berserker?
Yeah.
Honestly?
Yeah.
No.
That doesn't mean anything. There's good cards that are not ever really played in deck building because they don't have... Deck building is all about increasing your synergy, and the Blood Berserker doesn't have that ability really to increase the synergy.
Yeah,
right.
And I was going to say there's much better targets for axes in deck building because there are things that can get extra attacks, like in Cave Goblins or the Tundra Fighters, Grognak. So they become better targets for axes then too.
But that's kind of where I'm going. Like, it's going to have great synergy in general. Like you guys were mentioning, like when you're playing it, you need to be cognizant of where you're moving your other units and what your attack order is, because you don't want to risk a wild swing on your own units. So it's kind of a detrimental to yourself. Its stats are kind of underwhelming. 2/5 is like not the worst.
It's normal. It's the same as a Citadel Knight.
You're playing the Knight for its protect. But like,
I played my Knights for engage. Am I doing it wrong?
But like Wild Swing, like how often are you playing Blood Berserker and going, yes, I'm going to do this attack to get a Wild Swing off?
With the axe, like I said, if there's something that I can hit multiple units, I'll try that attack first to see what happens.
And I think too, it's good against when Obsidian Dwarves are getting rushed, like say Cave Goblins, it's good against them just to get extra damage, because they can't get extra attacks, but they can get extra damage through that. It's unpredictable, but it's definitely possible and happens a lot, and so you can do that with an axe. It's even better. But yeah, I think them having that extra health, it makes them a more defensive unit, even with that defensive ability being unpredictable, or that extra damage being unpredictable.
Yeah, the problem is the unpredictable aspect, because if you knew there was going to be like a damage that you could count on, it could be better. Most of the other 2/5s, because there are a couple other 2/5s in the game for 2 costs, that they all have a more dependable ability, whether it's engage or protect. Like, these are things that aren't left up to chance. That makes them a little bit better. But yeah, Wild Swing, when it works, can work really well. And you can also, if you are like not winning a game and you get a big Wild Swing, it can change the game a bit. If you have something extra that you weren't going to get a ton of extra damage on, but you end up rolling like 2-3 damage on it because you have a Blood Berserker with an axe, that's a fair amount. That can really change the game, dictate whether a champ dies or something of that nature. So,
counterpoint. When playing defensive, you don't often get to place your units in the most ideal location, and I don't play a lot of Obsidian Dwarves. I'll be upfront about that. I would say at least 10% of the games I play, Blood Berserker does more damage to me than it does my enemy.
Well, that just feels like a mistake.
Yeah, the mistake was playing the Blood Berserker.
Blood Berserker should never have a chance to do damage to yourself. unless it's a last resort, when you're playing the Blood Berserker, it should be to play it and stick it in between a couple of the other units on your opponent's side so you can get that chance to deal damage to them. Unless you don't have other options, like it really shouldn't be what you're playing if you have to attack adjacent. Whether if it's like a gate and you have a ton of health on it, not the end of the world. But your own units, that's just unfortunate.
Well, but that's what I mean. If you're attacking their unit and it's beside a gate and it does 0 damage to its target but does 2 to your gate, you're just like, why did I spend 2 magic on this?
Because it's got 5 health.
That's the Obsidian.
Well, yeah, and then it dies next turn. Or if it lives, it could just hit your gate again.
You gotta be okay with that as an Obsidian Dwarves player.
That's why Astro's not an Obsidian Dwarf player.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, we want to move on?
Yeah, I think it's events time.
Let's move on to the events. James, you want to start the first one off with your favorite right at the top?
Freeze from the Tundra Orcs. So I think part of the reason people don't like it is because they didn't put every single word on there to stop it from certain things. So people put freeze on something and they think, hey, that thing's totally off the board and it's not going to affect me. And then people can still do certain things like summon another Ember unit off of it, or purge it and blow it up, or summon a loot ball on it and then get killed by a 6 strength guy that they did not expect to appear. Anything that can sacrifice units, there's lots of ways around it. And then even further, a lot of the units you want to freeze are like big, tough things with lots of boosts on them, and you can't freeze stuff with boosts on them either. So there's a lot of times where like you really want to use it and you can't.
Plus the range too.
It's during the summon phase, I think, and it only has, 2 or 3 space range? Is it 3?
I think it's 3, yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 spaces, but you can't move before doing it. So you kind of have to set it up. One time I think it's good is when you're being pressured by decks, there's more than 3 things you want to kill, and you can freeze one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're up against like cave goblins or something like that. Or, they come up and they smoke bomb a unit with the cloaks, and you're like, well, I'll freeze it instead, and we'll just let you have it sit there. The other thing that doesn't come up too often is you can actually freeze your own units so they don't die. So like you can freeze a smasher and just have it be in the way.
If you're a Blood Berserker, you can still do damage to it, though. That getting in the way is really good. That's how I try to use it, is if I freeze something, how annoying is this going to be for the opponent? And so it could be my own thing. It could be like a unit that's right behind their summoner, and so then they can't retreat, Or a unit that's right in front of their summoner, and so they can't advance, or they're kind of trapped. Those types of uses, I think people don't always talk about or think about, because it's not as clear as just like this thing is a threat and now it is nullified or whatever. It makes it so that it's much more annoying and much more just harder to deal with as the Tundra Orc onslaught or the Tundra Orc defense, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I just remembered another very key thing that it is very useful when it comes up is it can be used to negate abilities of the unit. So it doesn't get rid of their name, but it does get rid of their abilities. So if there's a Citadel Knight, Mind Warden, something with a protect in a very important position, you can just freeze it and kill their summoner and end the game. And people will often not think of that play because they don't even think about freeze. It's like a dead card to most people. They think you've discarded it. If you take away their protect, you can just win sometimes.
Yeah. Guild Defender also too.
Yeah, or even if you freeze something with like an aura out of the High Elves, that can be helpful. If you freeze a Arbiter of Peace or Arbiter of Justice, yeah, there are definitely some uses. I feel like Grognak just wants a little more time a lot of the time in games. Like just a little more breathing room, a little more, like one more turn just to stay alive and do his thing. And so freeze can give you that, and can give you like a moment to reset, a moment to find a gate or get Grognak to safety or dive back in with Primal Fury. And it does give you that aspect, and sometimes that's between winning and losing a game as Tundra Orcs. So
one last thing I'll say about that is talking about annoying spots. If you freeze something on their front gate spot, that's very annoying, right? As the opponent. So just doing that can be really good.
If you freeze an ice golem, it's no longer a gate.
Yeah, it can't summon. No, I was sitting on that one.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, no worries. No, I was going to go to bat for free. It's a card I'm going to play every game. I do play Tundra Orcs, so I feel a little more qualified to speak on them. Are you going to play this event every game? No, I find outside of Fort Glory events probably pretty pitchable, more situational than a lot of decks. Freeze I've had an interesting relationship with. When I first played the deck, I tried to use Freeze all the time, and then you go on the Discord and people say it's garbage, just pitch it. So then I went through a long phase of being like, oh, it's just a free magic. And then I've transitioned back into, well, no, it does have those niche uses. And it is unfortunate that, it can't target boosted cards, especially since boost is so prevalent in this edition. But there are a lot of, I guess, more niche applications, and probably more than people think of. And you do bring up the Ice Golem, and I think of a game I was watching that Nestle played where he literally, I might have been against Vexer. He won it because he froze a Ice Golem on a summon spot, and was able to basically keep his opponent pinned, his summoner pinned in the corner in the late game, just because he couldn't move like one of his last remaining units and couldn't summon off it and couldn't block with it. And I think he had back-to-back freezes as well. So it was a dead card on the board that Nestle was able to move around. So if Freeze is able to turn off a lot of problems, and Aaron, as you mentioned, like it does give Grognak that kind of last gasp in a lot of the situations that he needs, whether he's pushing in or just needs it to get out from maybe a little over committed to an attack or something. So I think it is definitely a card that, due to its restrictions when it was first printed, won't ever really like rise out from kind of a low tier ranking, but it is definitely one to keep your eye on, especially if you're loading Tundra Orcs, because the niche applications can really turn a match around in your favor. I wish it didn't have the boost restriction on it, but other than that, I think it's a pretty fun one.
I think just in general, we were spending all this time talking about commons. The effect of a bad common on a deck can be really bad just because it's 4 cards in that deck, maybe even 5 cards in that deck with the starting setup. And events, the fact that there's 2 of them makes it, a much more okay to have an event that is situational, like Freeze right here too. So you can always, pitch one and keep the other one for some crazy endgame, like Astro was talking about with that Ice Golem, or just try and find some niche with the second one, whereas the first one you're just kind of using as fodder for the first part. So I think events give you kind of freedom to have things that are much more niche or much more situational, and that's a good thing, more than it being always need to have this be played every single time.
Let's move on to the next one. Let's go back to the Phoenix Elves with Blinding Flare.
Staying in the starter set.
Yep. Staying in the starter set.
Where champions got good, but maybe they had some events that were less good.
Blinding Flare is such an interesting one because it can sometimes be very good or not very good, just depending on the dice rolls, right? I've had some Blinding Flares that
turn a melee whiff into a 3-hit with the special.
Yeah. And I've also seen Blinding Flares where you roll 12 dice and you don't get a single hit, but sometimes you do better with the Blinding Flare up than you would have without, and they paid a magic for it. That's tough.
That unpredictability that we've been talking about, and we're going to talk about it with another thing we have coming up to another event. But yeah, it's just the fact that it is unpredictable makes it worse than like it could have been if it was just another Guarding Spirits or another, if Give Everything Tough or something like that too.
Yeah, and sometimes I like to try Blinding Flare, not like when I'm playing Phoenix Elves, but when I'm playing against them, just to see how it's going to treat me, because sometimes it's fine, but I find that one of the best aspects of Blinding Flare when I'm using it is them not attacking me at all. Like, if you don't even try to attack because you're so deterred by the Blinding Flare, like, that's a great turn if you don't get attacked at all. And if they can't spend those attacks on anything else, like your gates aren't wide open and they can't redirect it, they're essentially either like wasting an entire turn or like doing something minimal. That can be really strong in itself. But if they decide to like go all in despite the Blinding Flare and roll well, then that's rough.
You hit the nail on the head right there, where sometimes people will talk about Phoenix Elves and be like, oh, their events are so easy to play around, like you just don't attack when they're doing Blinding Flare, or if they have that big Spirit of the Phoenix Divine Retribution turn, you just, attack their gate, blah, blah. It's like, well, now my things that were going to die because it's a glass cannon deck are alive, and I can now build on top of that. And so anytime you have like your only blocker you have available is an Ember Archer, Blinding Flare is great for that. Maybe it'll die sometimes, but that's more unlikely than not. If you have a champ that's really good that you want to keep alive, Blinding Flare is really good, and that might deter them from attacking, or they might attack it and miss. And yeah, every once in a while it's going to have that oh, it would have been better if I didn't play this, but those stick in our heads a lot more than the like 5 times where it's just, oh, they did 1 damage instead of the 2 or 3 that they were going to do, kind of a thing.
I think another good use for Blinding Flare is when your opponent's kind of overcommitted to an attack, an invasion of your territory, and then suddenly, like after they've done it, you're like, but not finish you off. You're like, oh, I'm going to play Blinding Flare now. Now they're just stuck. I've had that happen as Wayfarers, where like you finally get
Wayfarer moment.
you finally get through. But we're talking about new decks. It could probably be equally useful against Drake's Sun Rebellion if they dive in and don't kill you off, and then you could follow up with a Blinding Flare, like keep one in your hand for those kind of situations. Bait them in and then play it, and then they're like, well, I guess I die now. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad, Beans, that you brought it up, because I do see that in the Discord a lot. Where like, oh, they throw up Divine Retribution, just don't attack their stuff. It's like, that is insane value. I'm glad I got a Phoenix Elf player out here who's pointing that out. Like, yeah, you could play an event and then just have all your stuff live. That's an insanely good event. I think the biggest issue for me with Blinding Flare is that 1 cost. When I play Phoenix Elves, I find it's kind of an expensive deck, and just like trying to get enough magic to contest with your glass cannon commons and whatnot. Blinding Flare just seems like that little extra edge to. Even if there are less ideal situations, I'm more apt to just throw it away because I don't want to be. I could be gaining a magic instead of losing a magic, sort of deal with it.
Yeah.
If it costs 0, I think it would be in a much better place. But it's really that one magic cost on it for me that drags it down.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I also do think if it costs 0, everyone would just play it twice a game. So
yeah, Shield of the Hopeful, they aren't the same, but like they are fairly close. And yeah, I don't play the Shield of the Hopeful in every game, but I do play it quite a bit, maybe more than a lot of other Filth players. But there is example of it being used, but maybe that's what pushes Filth over the edge. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Fix for Filth. 1 cost Shield of the Hopeful. Hey.
And nobody ever played it again.
Yeah, I think that just breaks the card itself. And
yeah, no, I don't think it ever get played.
Let's move on to the next one. Why don't we jump back into the Shimmer Sea Fae and touch on Rebuke?
I guess what makes it bad, we should talk about that first. And it's just that it costs a lot of magic, and it just puts it on the bottom of the deck, the common that you're targeting, instead of destroying it or discarding it entirely. But the fact that it doesn't discard is part of also, I think, the key of where it is good. If you rebuke someone's starting carrier against the fungal dwarves, it just feels real bad for them if they have nothing to infect for a while. That's one niche use. It's kind of useful. It also, on the other end, like against really big stuff, and just like when you can win a game for rebuking a Citadel Knight or some other thing that's very important.
Yeah, I think that's the main use is also if you can rebuke something that's very important to their deck, like a carrier for fungal dwarves or something of that nature.
Arbiter of Peace would be a good one.
Yeah.
Arbiter of Peace. Honestly, even, and I have not done this, so this might not work that well, but if a Filth player doesn't find their like volatiles and you can rebuke a mutant that they need in a certain matchup, that could be helpful. I don't know what that mutant would be against Shimmer Sea Fae.
Yeah.
Maybe horror would be a problem. I don't know.
Well, if you can get the
maybe
tentacle
horror.
early on and they just have a bad draw and all the other ones are buried, then you're good. But yeah, most of the mutants are just good against Fae in general.
Stuff like that. Units that are very crucial to the deck is what you want to target, or you want to use it to finish a deck off.
Yeah.
So finish the game with Rebuke. There's many times where if you have Rebuke in hand, they can't do a whole lot if you're up in their face at the end. It's very hard to avoid. Part of the issue is like the variable costs. So if you're trying to rebuke a fungal beast, then that costs you 3. And that's a lot of magic.
I did lose my league game against a Shimmer Sea Fae because of rebuking a fungal beast. I just didn't think of that as being a possibility. And then it just happened. And I was like, oh no, I'm dead. I was going to win, but now I'm dead.
Yeah, and if it can win you the game, it can win you the game. Rebuke can definitely do that. But there's just so many times when it's not going to be as effective because of that aspect or because you don't have a good option. And there are some more niche plays too.
One niche play is that you can hit like fully charged lionesses, like something that they invest more resources into. You can hit and get like economic value for. Like Rebuke for me is hard because I'm more of an economic player, and it's really difficult to spend that magic for something that he'll eventually get back. There was a community member. I want to shout them out. I can't remember who it was though. Who basically says play Rebuke, win games, and I thought they were insane, so I tried it in some practice games, and I actually found I did better when I did do it. Like before, I was just kind of pitching Rebuke like mindlessly from my hand. But the more I like try to at least get one play in a match, I found I was getting greater success from the Fae. It is expensive. I can't endorse playing both of them every time whenever you see it, but I think there is some room for Rebuke. And part of it, I think, as you mentioned, Jexic, is it will just catch people off guard. One, they're not playing Fae, and two, if they're playing Fae, 9 times out of 10, nobody's playing Rebuke anyway.
Yeah, I think it's another one, right, where you just pitch the first one, or unless you have a really good use for it, and then save that second one, because the way that Fae wins is that by being unpredictable and being aggressive, and Rebuke is really good for that.
Yeah, another niche play is if you're playing against like cloaks, you can Rebuke a smoke bomb like Machinist or Common that they have up there.
Or
So
do it
it's,
on a turn like against Unrelenting or Shield of the Hopeful type turns. When
Yep.
you're like, oh, this guy's going to be really tough. I've got a Anointed with Shield of the Hopeful up. And then you're like, wait, nope, Rebuke. Now I'm going to hit you. Could you Rebuke a Frozen unit? Probably. I don't know.
Everything works against freeze.
Yeah, so if the Tundra Orc player is just like, I'll freeze my own guy, you can just Rebuke it.
Wait, freeze can't be targeted by attack. Can it be targeted by an event?
I think so.
Yeah, it can be
Yeah.
targeted by an event. You could Rebuke it. Yep. That
Let's just
checks
getting
out.
into niche plays of niche plays, but
Yep. So in that moment, when you're playing against a Tundra Orc player and you're also Shimmer Sea Fae, and you have Rebuke, and they've frozen a card, which won't ever happen because they don't play freeze, but then that's when you play Rebuke.
there should be a tournament where you only get to play bad cards.
That did happen.
They did that, and I did not participate. Yeah.
I participated and I lost.
Oh, but that was the
Yeah.
deck building one, right?
The Garbage Gladiators.
I mean, I won't play it, but
It was more fun to think about what could make a bad deck than to actually play an awful deck. And I kind of saw that coming, so I did not play in it. But
Yeah, I played the first time, not the second time, because there was a second time. And the first time I was like, it's fine. So this episode ran a bit long, so it's now split into 2 parts. I hope you enjoyed the first part. We'll see you guys with the next part in 2 weeks.